Thank you. I'll be brief. I'm pleased to present our report on the ECB's crisis management systems. This is the third audit in a suite of related products which look first at supervision of banks, the general supervisory setup that is, on which we reported in our special report 29 of 16, on the system of dealing with banks in situations where risks are developing, becoming stronger, that's this audit, and how they are dealt with when they are close to failure or at least at risk of failure, and that was the audit on the SRB that we presented here about 2 weeks ago. For this audit, we examined the operational efficiency of the ECB's management of one specific supervisory task, the crisis management. This involves the assessment of advanced recovery planning by banks in order to be prepared for crisis situations. It also involves the process of identifying deterioration or worsening in a bank's financial condition in order to be able to take corrective action if necessary. Overall, we found that the ECB has established a substantial framework for crisis management procedures. The ECB's organisational setup and resourcing for the assessment of recovery plans and for the supervision of banks in crisis situations are satisfactory. However, we made a number of findings and recommendations. First, the ECB's process for the assessment of banks' recovery plans, as we indicated, is positive. Submission and monitoring procedures are in place and assessors have access to useful tools and guidance. But there are some issues, and to deal with these issues we recommended that the ECB provides additional guidance requiring the calibration of recovery plan indicators and makes better use of recovery plan assessments for crisis identification. We find that the ECB's operational framework for crisis management has some design flaws and there are some signs of inefficient implementation in practice. The ECB's own guidance for early intervention assessments is underdeveloped and objective criteria for assessing a deterioration have not been set. We recommend so that the ECB addresses these problems so its staff are well equipped to understand its legal powers and the most appropriate measures to be considered in specific scenarios. In terms of what to do when faced with a bank that is failing or likely to fail, we recommend that the ECB should further develop its specific operational guidance for this point so that, again, staff are better equipped than they currently are. Despite an improvement from the last audit, the ECB did not provide all of the evidence we requested. I do not dwell on this point because we don't have the time, but I must draw your attention to it. Some of the information requested was redacted or not provided comprehensively. That means that the conclusions we draw in this audit are well evidenced, but we were unable to confirm the operational efficiency of the ECB's crisis management in practice. I'd like to think just for a moment also about the system the ECB works within. For the system to work well, the SRB and the ECB must work well together. We found some evidence in our reports that the current framework is not sufficient in this regard. The SRB does not at present receive enough information on a regular basis from the ECB, which would aid it in its day-to-day work in resolution planning. Much of the communication between the ECB and the SRB is governed by an MOU, which needs to be improved. And I'm glad to say that both the SRB and the ECB have told us that they are working on improvements for this purpose. Some legal change may be necessary too. As legislators, you should be aware that we have suggested that the SRB request that relevant regulations are adjusted to make the flow of information from the supervisor more automatic than at present is part of our suggestions. So that's it, Chair. Thank you very much indeed.